They say Africa was poor, but this city was richer than any in Europe. The winds of the Sahara whisper secrets buried beneath centuries of dust. And somewhere, deep within the endless dunes of Mali, stands a city that once ruled the world of gold, knowledge, and trade. Timbuktu. It was not built by accident, nor discovered by luck. It was forged by the meeting of two worlds, the mighty Niger River and the vast, unforgiving Sahara Desert. Caravans of camels laden with salt from the north met traders from the south who carried ivory, slaves, and above all, gold. But this was not just a trading post. This was a beacon, a city that illuminated Africa's golden age, when empires like Mali and Songhai rose to unimaginable heights. To speak of Timbuktu was to speak of wealth beyond comprehension, libraries that rivaled Alexandria, and scholars whose writings still shape the world today. Centuries ago, the Mali Empire stood as one of the greatest powers on earth. Under kings like Sundiata Keita and later Mansa Musa, its dominion stretched across the Sahara, commanding the lifeblood of the gold trade. Gold, the very symbol of power, flowed through Mali like water. And no one embodied this wealth more than Mansa Musa, the richest man who ever lived. In 1324, Mansa Musa embarked on a pilgrimage to Mecca that would shake the world. He traveled with a caravan so vast that it reportedly included 60,000 men, 12,000 slaves, and 80 camels, each carrying more than 300 pounds of gold dust. When he passed through Cairo, his generosity collapsed the Egyptian economy for over a decade. Yet even with all that gold glittering beneath the sun, Mansa Musa's true legacy wasn't just his riches, it was Timbuktu. He transformed it from a dusty outpost into a center of learning and trade, a jewel of civilization in the desert. Timbuktu became more than a city. It became an idea, a symbol of what Africa once was, powerful, intellectual, and enlightened. Here, knowledge was currency. At the University of Sankore, students gathered from across Africa and the Middle East to study astronomy, mathematics, law, medicine, and philosophy. Scholars transcribed ancient Greek works, debated theology, and wrote in flowing Arabic script across endless pages of parchment. The libraries of Timbuktu held over 700,000 manuscripts, works on science, art, and history that predated many European Renaissance texts. They spoke of astronomy before Galileo, medicine before Pasteur, and philosophy before Descartes. Imagine the scene. Candlelight flickering against parchment, voices reciting verses of the Quran beside formulas of geometry, the air thick with ink and ideas. Timbuktu wasn't just a place of trade. It was a library in the desert, a living archive of human civilization. The wealth of Timbuktu flowed not from its soil, but from its position, the crossroads of worlds. From the mines of Bambara and Bouré came rivers of gold, carried by caravans across the desert. From Tagaza in the north came salt, more valuable than gold in those days. In Timbuktu, salt met gold, and both met books, ideas, and stories. Arab merchants brought silks, spices, and glass from the east. Tuareg nomads guarded the routes through the desert. African kings taxed the caravans, filling their treasuries with unimaginable fortune. This was the engine of an empire, a web of trade that linked Africa, the Middle East, and Europe long before the rise of global commerce. Timbuktu was its golden heart, beating with prosperity. When stories of Timbuktu reached Europe, they sounded like myth. A city made of gold? Libraries in Africa larger than any in Europe? A black emperor richer than every king combined? Impossible. But the whispers grew. Mapmakers marked Timbuktu on their charts as the city of riches, the El Dorado of the Sahara. Explorers, greedy for fame and fortune, risked death to find it. In the 14th century, Arab historian Ibn Battuta visited Mali and wrote of its wealth and justice. In the 15th century, the Spanish scholar Leo Africanus described Timbuktu as a city where there are many judges, teachers, and priests, and where manuscripts are more profitable than any other goods. Still, when the first Europeans finally reached Timbuktu in the 19th century, what they found was not the gleaming city of legend, but a faded shadow of its past. No empire lasts forever, and Timbuktu, the golden heart of Mali, would soon feel the weight of the world's changing tides. The fall began when the Songhai Empire, which had inherited Timbuktu's power, was shattered by Moroccan invaders in 1591. The invaders came for gold, but what they found were libraries, shelves upon shelves of manuscripts. They didn't understand their worth. Books were burned, scholars were enslaved, and knowledge that had taken centuries to gather vanished in smoke.
Then the desert shifted. Trade routes changed. The Atlantic slave trade pulled power toward the coasts, away from the Sahara. The world that once revolved around Timbuktu turned elsewhere. By the 1800s, the city had become a ghost of its former self. Sand swallowed its streets, its mosques crumbled under neglect, and the world forgot. But Timbuktu never truly died. Beneath its silence, families guarded a secret, the hidden manuscripts. For centuries, generations of scholars and villagers risked their lives to protect these ancient books. They buried them under floors, hid them behind walls, or sealed them in wooden chests away from conquerors and colonizers. These weren't just books. They were Africa's memory. They spoke of medicine, architecture, astronomy, poetry, and law, proof that Africa had empires of intellect when Europe was still emerging from the Dark Ages. When extremists attacked northern Mali in 2012, threatening to destroy Timbuktu's heritage once again, brave librarians and ordinary citizens smuggled over 350,000 manuscripts out of the city, saving them from certain destruction. This was not just an act of preservation, it was an act of defiance. A statement to the world, Timbuktu's light will never be extinguished. Today, the name Timbuktu has become a synonym for the middle of nowhere. but once it meant the center of everything. It was the hub of gold and knowledge, where merchants, poets, and kings walked the same streets, where ideas crossed paths with wealth, where Islam met Africa and Africa met the world. And perhaps that's the real treasure of Timbuktu, not its gold, but its story. A story of human brilliance, ambition, and resilience, a reminder that civilization does not belong to one continent or one people. It rises wherever knowledge and curiosity thrive. The ruins of Jingaraber Mosque, the sands around Sankore University, the manuscripts kept in shadowed rooms, all whisper the same truth. Timbuktu was not lost. It was hidden, waiting for us to remember. If we listen closely, Timbuktu still speaks. It tells us that wealth is not just gold, it is wisdom. That civilization is not built on conquest, but on the exchange of ideas. That no culture, no matter how far from the modern spotlight, is truly forgotten if its knowledge endures. The ancient traders who crossed the desert didn't just carry goods, they carried stories, innovations, beliefs, and in their wake they built a city that defied every stereotype, a city where black scholars debated the cosmos while Europe's universities were still learning to write. So, when they say Africa was poor, remember this: once, Africa taught the world. Stand today in the streets of Timbuktu, and you can still hear it. The echo of hoofs on stone, the whispers of scholars, the faint rhythm of an empire that once glittered like the sun. The sands may have swallowed its gold, but they could not bury its soul. Because Timbuktu was not just a place, it was a promise. A promise that knowledge outlasts empires, and that even in the heart of the desert, humanity can create light. So, when the next time someone speaks of Africa as forgotten, tell them this: once upon a time, there was a city of gold in the desert, a city that made kings tremble and historians wonder, and its name was Timbuktu. Timbuktu is more than a relic, it's a mirror. It shows us what happens when knowledge and wealth coexist, and what's lost when greed and ignorance take their place. Its golden age may have passed, but its story endures in the manuscripts, the myths, and in the hearts of those who still believe that wisdom is the truest form of gold. And as the sun sets over the Sahara, the dunes whisper once more, Africa was never poor. It was rich, richer than any kingdom in Europe, richer than the world will ever truly understand.